As games keep getting released, you may see that some games start sharing similar traits to one another, from sounds to story beats, but where most of the similarities are shared are in that of the visual department. Although lots of games have great graphics, it can be seen at times that sometimes games just look similar. There's nothing wrong with that, as there's a lot more stuff that makes a game great, and games do take lots of creative liberties to make their worlds stand out from one another. With that in mind, I think that one of the most impressive art directions I've seen in gaming is that of Control. Control is a game made by Remedy and released back in 2019, and although I do prefer the look of Remedy's most recent title, Alan Wake 2, I find Control's art direction to be just so out there. Control tried lots of stuff where I think it's best to say Control walked so Alan Wake 2 could run, but even with this analogy, it doesn't give Control's art direction justice because it's, again, just so out there. I think the aspect I can touch upon first is how the world changes. I mean, it's both how each area looks visually distinct from one another, but also how the world literally changes. Control is set in the oldest house, which from an outside perspective looks like a regular old building, but goes a lot deeper. This is also where the Federal Bureau of Control resides and conducts their work, and if you know anything about what the FBC works on in Control, you know you're in for a wild ride. The FBC is incredibly big, spanning multiple different areas and different sectors, and although they do share similar office and bureau looking areas, they manage to stand out from one another. From the executive hall to the power plants, there are these landmark locations that make it easy to remember where you are at any given time, and because of how each sector is structured like a Metroidvania of sorts, shortcuts open up and makes traversal easier as well. But man, do these places look cool. You have the luscious garden-like areas to the power plants. They have different terrains where you have stairs that go many stories up and seemingly reach the sky, to areas where you use rubble to reach the lower sectors of the water pumps, to corridors that look like they came straight out of The Shining. One of my biggest highlights of the game was reaching the quarry threshold. Although gameplay-wise I was not the biggest fan of how to reach it or the enemy encounters in it, this place, man, it just looks so magical. It's so deep under the whole burrow, but has the most distinct vibe to it. The mining areas are in direct contrast to everything we've seen up to this point in the game, and along with that, the incredible skybox that could fit in any high fantasy game, yet fits perfectly at home under the futuristic looking burrow. The closest feeling I can explain it is when you take the elevator to the underground in Elden Ring for the first time, just that Control did it 3 years earlier. Apart from how visually distinct the areas are in Control, the other way the world changes is how the world around you literally changes. The oldest house is being infected by the Hiss, which is this supernatural force being, thing, whatever, which has both infected the workers of the Bureau and also altered the structure itself. When you get to your first control point, which is this game's bonfire / save point, you get to see how much damage the Hiss has caused and how powerful Jessie, the protagonist, is. As she takes back the control point, we see how the world changes, where these square pillars fall back into place and open up more of the Bureau to explore. It might not be the most drastic change to the landscape, but its presentation is mesmerizing, and these same pillars also start popping up in other areas of the game, which alters the platforming you must do and how to progress, making traversal become somewhat of a challenge at times. But the biggest highlight of this changing scenery has to be the Ashtray Maze. Yes, it is the best section of the game, and no, I won't be spoiling it for you. If you have not played Control but have played Alan Wake 2, this is the music section. It's crazy fun and so trippy to see how Control's art team managed to present their creative capabilities. Regarding presentation, it's also important to talk about the use of color in the game, because there are a lot of colors used, each representing a certain emotional theme, with the three main colors being red, blue, and grey, so to speak. I'll get to that later. I think we can start with red, since it's both the easiest color to interpret and because it is the primary color of Control. Red is usually associated with danger, which the game makes quite clear. Enemies have a red hue to them, many control points are engulfed in the color red before you can cleanse it, and doorways are blocked off with red coloring at times. Although red is the primary color we associate with danger, there's also another way we can interpret it as desire. Okay, bear with me here because this is pretty wild, but the color of love is red, which is the link of desire. And how does desire like this apply to Control? Well, two ways actually. Jessie has her own desire to find her brother, which shows her affection for her brother, representing the more innocent or positive form of desire. This is, however, a contrast to the more evil or greedy side of desire, as seen with the Hiss. Look, I think this shows that Control is a pretty modern take on romanticism, which was the movement that put a lot of weight on the value of the sublime and the human condition, where both these contrasting factors in Jessie and the Hiss have their own desires that conflict with one another, leading to some supernatural conflict, which we see in the final world, where the world is engulfed in a red hue, showing the battle of desires, so to speak. But moving away from that, we have the color blue, generally seen as a calmer color than red, as it represents the mature and a sense of confidence. So how fitting is it that the color blue is represented in two ways, the first being the hotline messages from Trench, the previous director, and in a more subtle way through Ahti, everyone's favorite janitor. But first Trench. Since we are now the director, we see Trench in some sort of live action silhouettes with a noticeable blue tint. Trench, just through his speech, you really get this sense that this guy knows what's up and keeps his cards close, and we learn that from others like Langston and such, that Trench knows a lot. Ahti too also knows a lot of the ins and outs of the bureau and treats Jessie as his assistant, whilst also passing on just enough useful information to keep her going. Also, to contrast with the Red of Desire, in the final mission when delivering mail to Trench, which is red, he also gets taken over by the Hiss, showing how in the end his inner desires made him lose his mature or suave character and die. I guess you could say that he lost control. Bad joke, my bad, but moving on. And finally, we don't necessarily have a color, but bleakness or grey if I have to choose some sort of color. The bureau, although I did say that each area looks distinct from one another, most of them look very bleak and grey. Although the color does represent uncertainty and neutrality, it also leads into one final thing: minimalism. Minimalism is the final part that makes up Control's art direction. By taking a very small approach to things like the color and the bleakness of the bureau, you can manage to make the bigger things in the world pop out. The red carpet that looks like it came out from The Shining, or the massive stairs for instance. Although they are built into the world and fit with the grey tone, so to speak, they manage to stick out, which adds to the uncertainty and mystique of it all. But in other cases, the minimalist approach manages to stretch across the other areas to tell engaging stories and surprise the player. I mean, just look at this fridge. It's a small fridge that has nothing major going on around it. Not spoiling it, because if you know, you know, but this small daily household item manages to subvert expectations because of the minimal presentation approach. Or take the astral plane, the phone chamber room, or the paths through the dark abyss, not sure what the name is, but that's how I'll call it. All these areas just have simple blocks that act as a platform for you to pass to the next area, but there's nothing here of note to make it stand out. And it's this lack of nothing that makes these areas, well, like I've been saying, stand out. Because the more you take away from something, the more it pales in comparison to the rest of the world, leading us to ask ourselves, why is it like this? What is the astral plane? Why do we keep coming back to the Ocean View Motel? Why does the void stretch so long? Listen, you don't need to tell or explain to the players the reason and meaning behind everything, because the best thoughts you get from video games are the ones you think about on your own. Control's art direction is superb. Although lots of these elements were implemented and further improved upon in Alan Wake 2, Control still manages to stand on its own with its creativity in art. The differing sides of the bureau, so how it can shapeshift around you. Even more so, Control's use of color is wonderful, from the strong red to the subtle blues, to how they complete the minimalism of the oldest house. Although Control might not be among my favorite games of all time, its art style and direction is truly one of the most unique that I've ever witnessed, and is truly an experience like no other.
Yksin sankar yön syvemmälle matkaa pois.
And with that, welcome to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, a like means a lot, and so too a dislike if you did not enjoy the video. But do let me know, what do you think about Control's art direction, and what moment caught you most off guard? I would love to hear your comments down below. And if you want to see more from me, a subscribe comes a long way in helping the channel out. And I just want to say again, thank you guys so much for all the support over the recent videos. It really does mean a lot. I just really hope you've been enjoying the videos. With that, I've got 2 more videos for the rest of the year. Don't worry, FromSoft fans, the next one will be about Elden Ring. But other than that, time to get back to gaming and studying. So once again, thank you for watching all the way to the end. It really does mean a lot. Again, that's it. Have a good rest of your day, night, and week. And with that, Storm out.